Yo, Big D here talking Dylan's history of sports. Game 7 moments, moments. Driving your top productions, Bunky Spectrum Sports, Big D podcast. We're all here and thinking of another episode I could do. I figured Game 7 moments because we're in the middle of the Stanley Cup playoffs, NBA playoffs. I'm like there are plenty of crazy Game 7 moments. So let's take a look at some in the award of the NBA, NHL, and MLB. First off, I wanted to talk what makes Game 7 so unique. Well, it's the only game of a series where somebody's going to advance or win a championship and the other team's going home. Simple as that. There's going to be a winner or a loser, and there's nothing like it. I mean, a Game 7, whether it be for the World Series, the NBA Finals, or the Stanley Cup Finals, nothing like it. The intensity, the pressure, what's on the stakes, second to none. And, by Game 7, everybody knows what plays or what situation will happen. Everybody's seeing the other team's best pitchers. Everybody knows what plays will happen. What face-off plays will they run, power play, penalty kill, or whether a team's going to run a pick and roll, pick and pop. Who's got what on a switch? Who's got what guy's going to do what? How many minutes certain stalls will play? I mean, but we've seen in all sports where the tension is something. The crowd is at fever pitch. But sometimes the crowd doesn't know what to do because they're like, there were crazy moments in any sport. And we don't know what will happen, whether somebody's going to hit a walk-off home run, home run to win the game, make that winning pass. Or, score the winning goal and be the hero. Somebody could be, Bobby Orr, even though that wasn't a Game 7, win a Stanley Cup, or Patrick Kane against the Flyers in 2010. But there are Game 7 moments in every sport. Unfortunately, we don't have any NFL Game 7s, but that's not really important now. Wanted to talk about some. Maybe one of the most, if not the most famous call, if you're from Boston, Game 7 of the 1965 Eastern Division Championship. Boston Celtics, Philadelphia 76ers, Game 7 at the Old Garden, Philly down 1, and maybe the most famous radio call in NBA history by the late Johnny Most. What he said, and Havlicek steals it. Havlicek stole the ball. It's all over. I mean, even today, people in Boston will probably remember. Will probably remember that game. And really, I think that call not only shows what the Boston Garden was like back in the day, or Johnny Mullins, but what the Celtics could do. Havlicek steals the ball, and then all of a sudden, it's like the game's over, series over. It's like, of course, the Celtics come with that crazy moment. And there are moments that stick out, and I think that for what the Celtics did in the late 50s, early mid, and throughout the 60s, and then a few years later, Game 7, 1969 NBA Finals. Celtics Lakers. And Will Chamberlain ended up getting hurt. I think he hurt his knee early. And for whatever reason, whether he was truly hurt, he could have played, he couldn't have played, didn't come back. And the Celtics ended up winning that game. I think that was the last game that Bill Russell ever played. I think he might have been the player coach for that Celtic team in '69. And there were rumors that the Lakers put a whole bunch of balloons that were going to come down when they won the championship. Well, that didn't happen. That didn't happen, and the Celtics not only won, but handed their biggest rival probably a loss that still stings 57 years later. And then the next year, Game 7, 1970 NBA Finals, Lakers and Knicks at the Old Garden, and they were questioning whether or not Willis Reed would be able to play. I think he missed Game 6. And, the question was whether or not Willis Reed would play Game 7. Well, not only did Willis Reed play, but he came out of the locker room and made the first 2 baskets of the game. And then Willis Reed didn't have another basket the rest of the game. Didn't matter. Because arguably in the biggest game the New York Knicks have played, maybe in franchise history. Walt Clyde Frazier put up 36 points and 19 assists as the Knicks beat the Lakers 113 to 99. Trust me, I'm not picking on the Lakers. I'm just saying big moments in these Game 7 moments and big Game 7. I'm going to fast forward in time. Game 7, 1984 NBA Finals, Lakers Celtics. This was during the heart of the Magic Larry Bird rivalry. Legendary players from both sides. Sides are crazy. Good series, good series, back and forth. And then in Game 7, look at these minute totals. I'm looking at the minute totals here on Basketball Reference: 43, 43, 42, 40, 43, 43, 42, 40. It's crazy how many minutes these guys play. And what happened in that game? Kareem was fantastic. 12 or 22 for once. Magic, 15 assists. Shocker. Let's see what Larry Bird did. Oh, yeah, he 6 of 18. Cedric Maxwell, Perez, Dennis Johnson, Kevin McHale. Just legendary players, and I think showed not just what basketball could be, but what maybe the NBA's best rivalry and what the NBA's 2 best stars at the time could do, and not just having everyone play. And Game 7, 1988 NBA Finals would have been Pistons-Lakers. And this was after a crazy Game 6 where Isaiah Thomas puts up like 20-something points in Game 6. In third quarter of Game 6 on a badly sprained ankle. And in Game 7, Isaiah Thomas was clearly hampered, only played like 28 minutes. And, who knows? But the Lakers survive and win back-to-back 108 to 105, and James Worthy with 36 points and 16 rebounds in Game 7. Again, you could argue this was the coming of the team on the rise against the best team in the world. And then we saw what happened. The bad boy Pistons were going to become the next NBA champion eventually. But the Lakers were showtime. And that team, you could say, just played the game so cool, so LA. And the Pistons were so Detroit. Detroit felt dirty, how gritty, how nasty that team was. And I think what it showed is that there are multiple ways to win. You could be cool, the slick back hair like Pat Riley and the Lakers. You could be gritty like Chuck Daly and the Pistons. And then the next 2 years, Detroit won the NBA title, beating the Lakers in '89 and beating the Portland Trail Blazers in '90. And then trying to think of a couple good Game 7s. Maybe the next great one that I remember. I remember the Last Stand series, but 1998, 1998, Game 7, Pacers Bulls at the United Center. After Reggie Miller won, after Game 6, Reggie Miller and the Pacers won. After game, crazy back and forth series. Talk about two loud buildings. It might not have been a louder building in Market Square Arena. And honestly, I think that was where MJ made his return back from playing baseball against the Pacers, no less. And the Bulls actually got down quite a big margin. And this was not the NBA like today where teams could put up 120 points. They were routinely games where teams might win in the 70s or 80s. Now, that might be in the third quarter. And, it was just a back and forth game, and the Bulls, just like they always do, grinding it out. And Reggie set in the 13. I think he played 41 minutes. Jordan, as per usual, 28. Kukoc for 21. And the Bulls were just able to hang around, and figure out a way of winning that game. And you could argue in many ways, if that ends, if the Bulls lose Game 7 to the Indiana Pacers, that Bull team is not remembered. And yeah, Michael Jordan's probably still, if not the GOAT, or maybe the GOAT Prince or Magic or LeBron, but the Bulls needed the win. Otherwise, the divorce would have been uglier in Chicago, because everybody knew Phil Jackson was gone. Who knew about MJ? Maybe he should have stayed retired, but that's either near thing. And so the Bulls went to the NBA Finals, and it turns out they didn't need a Game 7, thankfully. Otherwise, winning another game in Salt Lake with Scottie Pippen hampered by that back injury would have been something. 2000 Western Conference Finals, Portland and LA at the Staples Center. And, first year in the new building. And it looked like the Trailblazers might spoil the Lakers' party. I mean, the Lakers got Phil Jackson, Shaquille O'Neal, and all these guys together to win the title. And Portland's ahead, I think, by like 15 points in the fourth quarter. And the Lakers just come back and look like, and in one of the biggest meltdowns in NBA playoff history. Now, maybe the Lakers got some calls, but um, one play I remember the most when Kobe Bryant, the late Kobe, threw an alley-oop pass to Shaq. And I don't think I've ever heard the Staples Center yell that much. But that's how crazy loud it was. And then 2 years later, similar situation, this time Lakers Kings, this ultimate Cinderella against royalty. A team going for 3 in a row against the underdog Kings. I mean, very controversial series, I think. And the Lakers prevail and ended up, I think, sweeping the New Jersey Nets in the NBA Finals. But still, shows what the difference between David and Goliath. You have to beat the champs. You can't beat the champs 3 out of 7. It's 4 out of 7. And beating the champs is so much harder than it is, frankly, in any sport. That's why the Dodgers could win. I'll talk about LA in Game 7 of last year's Fall Classic. I think there were a couple. 2005 NBA Game 7. Not really a high-scoring game. 2 great defense teams. But the Spurs did what they could do better than most. Just win close games. We know what Popovich did. Of course, with Duncan, Ginobili, Parker, that Spurs team against a really underrated Detroit Piston team. I don't think anybody knows how great that Piston team was. With Billups, with Rip Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince, Rasheed Wallace, Ben Wallace, of course, the legendary coach and Larry Brown. And, it was a great series. Spurs prevailed. Then the next year, Game 7 of the, I think, West Conference semifinals, that was Dallas and San Antonio. And Dirk Nowitzki playing one of his best games as the Mavericks made a deep run to the NBA Finals, losing to the Heat. And then there were a couple more. I think 2008, Game 7 of the Eastern semis. I remember Paul Pierce and LeBron James having some crazy games. 2013 Eastern Conference Finals, Game 7, Pacers Heat. I mean, maybe one of the most underrated games of LeBron James' career. Because if the Pacers win Game 7, that Heat team might only end up with 1 title, which the Heat's LeBron D. Wade said, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6. You imagine they only win 1? Especially if the Pacers end up winning? Oh, boy. With Paul George and Roy Hibbert? Oof. And I mean, lately there have been other Game 7s. 2016 NBA Finals Game 7, when Kyrie Irving makes the 3 and the Cavs beat the champs, the 73-win Warrior team. And LeBron gives Cleveland, and LeBron wins the title in LA. In Cleveland against the Warriors, Steph Curry and everybody. So the Cavs get Cleveland's first title since Jim Brown in 1964, and it's crazy how that Cavalier team did it, because they came back from down 3-1 and then, won 3 straight games against one of the greatest teams in NBA history. And there were other games. I mean, remember even last year's Game 7 with, not that I watch NBA basketball, but Tyrese Halliburton tearing his Achilles. And how did that change history? 2018, I think it was 2018 Warriors Rockets, where the Rockets could have finished off the Warriors with KD, Steph, and Clay. And we know what happened in that game. Rockets lose, Warriors win another title against LeBron. So crazy NBA Game 7s, not just today, but of yesteryear. Now, it's funny. There's a big Game 7 tonight in the NHL with Montreal and Buffalo playing a Game 7. So, fitting I talk NHL Game 7s. I mean, it's been more than a count. I mean, we go back a long way. But there are a couple that stick out to me in terms of hockey. What? I think there was a Game 7. Yeah, 1979 Montreal Boston. I was thinking it'd be 1979 Montreal Boston, of course. And the Canadians ended up winning that game 5-4 in overtime. A Game 7 in overtime. I think the Yvonne Lambert score, that would have been Kenny Dryden in goal for the Canadians at the Old Forum. Nothing better than a Game 7 at the Old Forum, right? Probably the one I remember, one of the most underrated I remember would have been, let me think. Yeah, Game 7, 1996 conference semifinals, Blues Red Wings at Joe Louis Arena. And this blue team had Wayne Gretzky on. And this was not just overtime, double the time, Game 7, nothing. And Steve Eisman ends up winning the game. Chris Osgood ended up getting a shutout, double overtime shutout. Not bad, right? A 1-0 game. And then the next round, I think the Panthers ended up winning the Game 7 over the Penguins. John Van Beetsbrook and goal. And a few years later, 2001, Stanley Cup Final, not necessarily the best game, Avalanche Devils. But I remember, of course, that was Ray Bourque getting this long overrated, probably long deserved Stanley Cup ring. And I remember Gary Thorne calling the game. I don't know if it was for ESPN or ABC, that Raymond Bourque's the Stanley Cup champ. And I think everybody, even in Boston, would agree Ray Bourque probably deserved a Stanley Cup ring for what he had done. And there were a few, and then, by the way, I forgot to mention 94 Game 7 conference final. Stephane Matteau won Game 7 at the Garden against the Devils, and this was after Mark Messier guaranteed that the Rangers would beat the Devils in Game 6. What happens? Messier gets a hat trick, and Stephane Matteau wins in overtime against young Martin Brodeur. And then the Rangers ended up winning Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final against the Vancouver Canucks. And to this day, I think Vancouver has been riding, but that's either neither there. And then back-to-back years, actually 3 out of 4, 2003, 2004 and 2006, there were Game 7s. The Devils beat the Anaheim Ducks 2003. The Lightning beat the Calgary Flames 2004. Carolina Hurricanes beat the Edmonton Oilers in Game 7. And then 2009, Sidney Crosby wins the Stanley Cup championship when he's not even on the ice. I mean, Sidney Crosby got hurt fairly early in the game. Penguins got up, and I think Detroit ended up scoring. And then Nicholas Lidstrom and the Red Wings throw everything in the kitchen sink and Marc-Andre Fleury. And the Penguins survive one of the craziest sequences to win a Game 7. And Sidney Crosby becomes, at the time, the NHL's youngest captain to ever lift Lord Stanley's Cup. Not bad. And 2 years later, Tim Thomas and the Bruins shut out the Vancouver Canucks in Canada in what might have been even more frustrating than 94. Having a home Game 7 and not even scoring. Let me think. What other games do I remember? I mean, there have been other great semis. We saw Game 7, I think it was last year, Blues and Jets, but the Jets score a couple goals, including one with like 3 seconds left in regulation, and then of course Winnipeg wins in overtime. Game 7, Oilers Panthers, where the Panthers won a 2-1 game and came back from almost blew in a 3-0 series lead. Oof. I'm not sure that would have pleased. I'm not sure that would have pleased everybody here in Florida. And by the way, I don't think the Toronto Maple Leafs want to live all their Game 7 defeats, right? No. Yeah, Rangers. Yeah, it seems like. No, I don't. No, I don't. Yeah, Sam Reinhart ended up scoring the winning goal in the 2024 Stanley Cup Final. Probably the game that Maple Leaf fans would want to forget. Last year's Game 7 against the Panthers. I think it was 6-1. I mean, frankly, the Maple Leafs, after winning Game 6, thinking, "Oh, we have Game 7." Nope, no chance. And now my sport, baseball, and there were some crazy Game 7s. 1924. It looked like Walter Big Train Johnson was going to be the GOAT for the Washington Senators. And I don't mean the greatest of all time. The reason why they lose the series. But then in Game 7, out of the bullpen, Big Train shows why he's the MVP by pitching key innings from the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th innings. And then the Senators ended up winning the World Series. And Walter Johnson's one of the heroes of that game against the New York Giants. I mean, yeah, in a game that was started by Virgil Barnes and Curly Ark, then ended with Walter Big Train Johnson pitching in relief, 4 shutout innings. Oof. relief, and to this day, it's the Game 7 1924 World Series is the longest Game 7 in World Series history, 12 innings. 2 years later, 1926 World Series. Yeah. Game 7, 1926 World Series. This would have been Yankees Cardinals. And Grover Cleveland Alexander comes out of the bullpen for the Cards, gets some key outs, but funny thing happened in the game. Babe Ruth, yes, true. Babe Ruth was thrown out trying to steal second base. I think his name is Bob O'Farrell. Threw out Babe Ruth to end the 26th World Series. I mean, some crazy thing. I mean, you never expect Babe Ruth to be thrown out. I remember in 2013 seeing on back-to-back nights, Alan Craig scoring a winning run on an obstruction call, and then Coleman Wong's picked off first base in Game 4. I mean, how about thrown out on the pillars to end the World Series? I mean, I think Ricky Henderson would have the green light. I'm not sure the Babe would have the green light on the pillars. But you never know what to expect, right? 1946 Red Sox Cardinals. So this would have been just after the war. Teddy Ball Game's only fall classic, which is hard to believe, this would have been famous for Enos Slaughter's mad dash, scoring from first, hit and run. Cardinals ended up winning the game, end the series 4-3, and Cardinals ended up winning another World Series, and the wait continued, and Teddy Ballgame would never get that World Series ring. Neither would Yaz, neither would Jim Rice. That seems kind of hard. And of course, we know what happened in 67 when the Red Sox beat the Red Sox at Fenway. Would have been Bob Gibson against Jim Longball on 2 days rest, and Gibby ended up hitting a home run off Longball in that game. And this was in a stretch where the Cardinals played 3 Game 7s, winning 2 in 64, 67, and then, of course, Mickey Lowers on 2 days rest beating Gibson in 68 when Kurt Flood misplayed a ball in the outfield. I'm not going to forget 1960. Trust me, I know. 1960, the Pirates against the Yankees. Pirates scored almost 3-1, but Game 7. And Bill Mazeroski hits a home, becomes the first of only 2 men to end a World Series with a walk-off home run, the other being Joe Carter in 93. Pirates ended up winning the World Series despite New York outscoring them by a lot. I mean, and that World Series ended up being Casey Stingler's last game as Yankee manager. I mean, questions today, if Whitey Ford would have started in Game 7, would the Yankees have won? You could argue, yes. If Whitey Ford would have started 1, 4, and 7, which is what most big starters did. That's what Gibson did in 67, 68. That's what Seaver would have done in 69. The Mets had gone 7 games. But I don't know. Yeah. I think Yankee fans want a replay of that World Series. 1971. That would have been the Roberto Clemente series. Hitting a key home run off Mike Quayle to give the Pirates a lead. And then Steve Blass ended up pitching one of the best games of his career. Another one of it. After winning Game 3, Blass shuts down a great Oriole team, and the Bucks win their first World Championship in 11 years. And then 4 years later, 75, after maybe the best ball game in sports history, Game 7 of the 6th of the 1975 World Series, Game 7, Red Sox get out early, and then Bill Lee throws an eephus pitch to Tony Perez, who hits it over the wall. Reds take the lead. Reds tie it up. Then Joe Morgan gets a big base hit late. Reds take the lead, and the Big Red Machine finally gets the title. And then 79, World Series Game 7, in front of the president, no less, Willie Stargell hits a bomb to right field, giving the Pirates bookend titles in 71 and 79. 82, this one near and dear to me. Keith Fernandez for the big base hit in Game 7 of the 82 World Series, and the Suds World Series between the Brewers and the Cardinals. And then Dale Porter ended up getting a big base hit in the 8th inning to give the Cards insurance, and Bruce Sutter, as he did better than anyone in that era, shut down Milwaukee. Key on 3, I don't really know. Game 7, 1986, Red Sox get out early. Sid Fernandez, the unsung hero, just as he did in 82. Keith Fernandez gets a big base hit. Then the Mets get ahead. The Red Sox darn near get back in the game. Mets get some insurance. Jesse Orozco gets the Mets through the ninth. And the Mets get their first World Championship since 1969. Probably the best pitch ball game in baseball history. Game 7 of the 91 World Series. Smoltz and Jack Morris. Both guys went back and forth. Game went extras. Jack Morris goes 10 shutout innings. And then Gene Larkin comes off the bench and gets the biggest pinch hit in Minnesota Twins history. And the Twins win their second World Championship in 5 years. And then the next year, 92, the Braves play maybe not an equally more important game, but, another crazy Game 7 where the Braves would, in their zenith of dominance, winning 14 straight division titles, and Sid Bream scoring from second on Francisco Cabrera's liner to end a crazy Game 7 of that LCS and start 20 years of futility for the Pirates. Game 7, 97 World Series, where the Marlins become the first wildcard team. Indians get 2 runs in the 3rd inning off Al Leiter. Bobby Bonilla hits a monster home run in the 7th inning. And in the bottom of the 9th inning, Craig Counsell. It's a sac fly to tie the game. A couple innings later, Edgar Renteria goes up the middle, past Charles Nagy, and the Marlins win their first World Championship in franchise history. 2001. Not just an incredible game, but an incredible series after 9/11. 1-1, top of the 8th. In a game started by Coach Schilling and Roger Clemens, Alfonso Soriano hits a bomb off Schill to give the Yankees the lead, and Mariano Rivera enters. And when Mariano Rivera entered playoff games, or entered any game in general, the Yankees were going to win. Not as Lee Corso used to say on game day, not so fast, my friend. The D-backs get 2 runs off the go. Tony Womack hits a key double, 1-out double, tying the game. And then Luis Gonzalez, against a drawn-in infield, loops one over everyone's head to give the D-backs their first and only World Championship in franchise history. 2003 ALCS Game 7. At the heart of the Red Sox-Yankee rivalry. Red Sox are up 5-2, heading to the bottom of the 8th. Red Sox need 5 outs to win the pennant. Pedro Martinez on the bump. Game over, right? Not. Yankees get 1 run, and a great little controversy leaves Pedro in the game. Yankees get a couple more hits. Sada ties it up. And then bottom of the 11th, Aaron Boone, who didn't even start the game at third base, delivers the walk-off home run off Tim Wakefield, giving the Yankees their 6th pennant in 8 years and adding more frustration to the Red Sox, which be extinguished the next year, winning Game 7 and capping the greatest comeback in the history of professional sports, coming back from down 3-0 and beating the mighty Yankees. 2006 National League Championship Series, Game 7 at Shea Stadium, 1-1. I think it's 1-1. Scott Rowland hits a bomb to left field. Andy Chavez not only takes away a home run, but then throws out Jim Edmonds to end the Cardinal thread. Then Chavez comes up in the bottom of the inning, pops out, tie game. And then Yadier Molina, who had 216 in the regular season, hits a bomb off Aaron Heilman to give the Cardinals the lead. And then what do you know? The Mets load the bases, and Carlos Beltran, who had too many home runs against the Cardinals in 2004 and 2006, comes to the ditch off Adam Wainwright. And Adam Wainwright throws one of the nastiest curveballs you'll ever see. Cards win the pennant, and the Mets are stunned. An 83 win Cardinal team wins the World Series. And then 2014, that crazy World Series with the Giants and Royals, where Madison Bumgarner throws 5 shutout innings out of the bullpen, and the Giants win the 3rd World Series in 5 years. 2016. Not just a great World Series, but a crazy game. Cubs get out early. Dexter Fowler, David Ross hit a home run in his last big league game. Roller Chapman in the game, thinking Cubs are going to win their first World Series in 108 years. Then Rajay Davis hits a bomb, ties it up. Then a rain delay. And Jason Hayward leaves one of the most important speeches in Chicago sports history. Cubs take the lead. The Indians keep fighting back. And then eventually, Cubs get an out. Cubs get out of the 10th inning, and Cubs win their first World Series in 108 years. Oof. Yeah. And then, even last year, talk about 2025. I mean, last year's World Series was crazy. I mean, Game 7 is right up there in terms of the craziest and most insane games we'll ever see. Bo Bichette hits a home run off Shohei Ohtani, putting the Blue Jays ahead. Then the Dodgers keep fighting. Max Muncy hits a home run, the 7th or 8th inning. And then the 9th inning, off Jeff Hoffman. Miguel Rojas hits a game-tying home run. And then the bottom of the ninth, Andy Paz makes one of the greatest World Series catches under extreme pressure, because if that ball drops, the series is over. And then in the 11th inning, Will Smith hits a go-ahead home run off Shane Bieber, putting the Blue Jays ahead. And then Yoshi Yamamoto goes old school, wins Game 2, wins Game 6, and then pitches 2+ innings in Game 7, giving the Dodgers back-to-back World Series. And while we think of the Dodgers as evil, we think of the Dodgers like the Yankees of yesteryear. The fact Yoshi Yamamoto making $300 million and say, you know what, I'll throw a complete game in Game 2. I'll throw 5 innings, 5+ innings, 6 innings in Game 6, and throw 2+ in Game 7. Shows what these guys will do. And ends one of the craziest World Series with 18-inning games, with all kinds of craziness. And, that was after Toronto played a crazy Game 7 of the American League Championship Series, where George Springer hits a big home run, giving the Blue Jays their first pennant since back-to-back World Championship teams in 92 and 93. So, talk about drama, talk about intrigue, talk about incitement. There could be some crazy Game 7 moments. Who's going to be the hero tonight in Buffalo? Who's going to, we saw, Cavs won Game 7 in Detroit last night. Not that we care about the NBA. But I just in today's Dylan's History of Sports episode, I wanted to talk about Game 7 moments, because careers are defined by these games. You imagine what history is if the Warriors win another title, or if LeBron wins a title, maybe the Kings win a title, maybe the Trailblazers win a title. Or if maybe the Yankees win 4 in a row, or maybe the Red Sox win in 2003, or maybe the Cubs win that 2003 National League Championship Series Game 7 against the Marlins. And that's after an even crazier Game 6, where we know about the Steve Ballmer play. And even sometimes games that won't play. Met fans will remember Game 6 of the 86 National League Championship Series. But you know what the most important game that wasn't played? Game 7. Because Mike Scott would have pitched that game. And in 18 innings, the Mets only scratched out one run against Mike Scott. Or fans and Mets would probably call him Mike Scuff that year. What he was doing with the ball, who knows? But, several reasons for Game 7. They're all crazy. So, thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Dylan's History of Sports, Game 7 moments, and I'll see you soon.